Oh, no doubt, no doubt. I mean, California, of course, that's been one of the strongest Democratic states, and where the Hispanic vote has helped Democrats going back to the Pete Wilson era. I mean, they have a long heritage. In some of the other states, Nevada, I'm not sure it made as big a difference as some people think in Nevada. And here's why. The vote there, the Hispanic vote for Harry Reid was 68% to 30%. That's about what it was nationally. We got about, I think, about 4 points more out of the Hispanic vote than Democrats did nationwide. I'm not sure that's significant, especially given the ads that Sharon Angle ran, which were fairly inflammatory and almost remarkable. I would have guessed the Hispanic turnout for the Democrat against her would have been much higher.
I know that Rudy and I and you had been recruited to be extras in Sharon Angle ads, but we weren't big enough or menacing enough. But apart from that obvious problem, what do you think of that analysis? I mean, Harry Reid, the campaign had said, look, if we get beyond 12, 13%, that pushes us that much closer to being home and dry. And Harry Reid yesterday morning basically said, I'm here because of the Latino vote, 15 to 17% in his case. Turnout was important.
I think turnout was important. I think turnout was probably, in terms of Latino vote, more important than the percentages, frankly, and particularly in Clark County, which is a fairly significant Hispanic population. But I think there was also some campaign issues, too. I think Harry Reid is renowned for his political prowess, particularly in the ground game. I think his campaign did an excellent job on the ground, getting out the vote. The air game, the TV wars, definitely broke in his favor, particularly towards the last month or so of the campaign. He had a very positive ad with regard to healthcare reform. While I disagree with the policy, the ad itself was very effective, I thought, and I thought Sharon Angle's ad, particularly as it related to immigration, just turned people off. Not just Latino voters, just turned the electorate off. But I think there's a point to be made with regard to the Tea Party. And I think there's a lot being bandied about the impact of the Tea Party and the Republican Party. I think right now it's a little bit overblown, and we don't know what the impact long term is going to be. I think tactically the impact was, instead of gaining 6 Senate seats like we did, we may have gained 8 or 9. I think fundamentally that's the impact. I don't think we would have taken over the Senate irrespective of the Tea Party. I think Delaware, Colorado, and Nevada were probably the 3 examples where mainstream Republican candidates probably would have done better than the Tea Party candidates. But we'll see what the Tea Party impact is on the Republican Party moving forward.
Well, Raul Grijalva was in trouble. Solomon Ortiz from Texas, Ciro Rodriguez from Texas, voted out. John, there was some down ballot action among Latino voters as well.
Sure, I agree that the western states, Colorado, Nevada, and California, where I don't think the outcome was in doubt, but the margin was significantly larger, was a place where Latino voters made a big difference. And I think in Nevada especially, you also add the factor that there was a Republican on the ballot for governor, and a winning Republican. So you had voters splitting their votes, Latino voters coming out to vote for a Republican governor and to vote for Harry Reid. And so I think they were significant there. I think the Tea Party was, in other parts of the country, much more beneficial to Republicans, because I do think the Tea Party candidates were mixing their message of small government with a kind of anti-immigration rhetoric in some of the western states. But for the most part, in the rest of the country, it really was all about smaller government, debt deficit, taxes. And that is a very winning message for Republicans, not only the more populist conservative Tea Party members, but middle-of-the-road voters, independent voters, who may not be as worried about that, but generally believe we're moving in a direction of larger government. So it's a mixed case.
Rudy, if you look at the campaigns, you would have thought there was an active debate in the House or Senate or both over immigration. But there wasn't. There was no bill on the floor. There was nothing in committee. Yet David Vitter in Louisiana, Tom Tancredo, Sharon Angle, prominently, but many other campaigns as well, ran really, really tough ads concerning anxiety about immigration.
And where it mattered, it really worked against the candidates. And that's one of the things that I think we can also take away from this election, is very clearly the Latino vote said, when you're with us, we're going to be with you. And when you're against us, you're going to pay for it. That can clearly be seen in the Senate races. And also, you mentioned Raul Grijalva, who is going to squeak out a victory. And that's because, in spite of what the sentiment was in Arizona around SB 1070, he stuck with his base and he went towards his base. We saw when people moved away from their base and they went in favor of that issue, that they got hurt for it. You talked about Susana Martinez and Sandoval. Although they both won, they both lost the Latino vote very substantially. And Marco Rubio in Florida, who did win the Latino vote, we understand that the dynamics in Florida are a little bit different with the Cuban-American vote. However, he also toned down his anti-Latino rhetoric, or his anti-immigrant rhetoric, quite a bit, where it was really high in the primary in order to generate more support from his base. He toned it down quite a bit in the general election. So we have a dynamic that I think is very clear, that when you're with us, we're going to be with you, and when you're not, you're going to have to pay.
How does that set the table for 2012, Danny?
Well, I'm going to respond to that a little bit too, because I think it's a little bit disingenuous and a little bit unfair. You know, using terms like anti-immigrant is unfair. It's anti-illegal immigrant in many cases in terms of some of the campaign ads, number one. Number two, there was no bill on the floor that was being debated. There was a bill that was sort of a markup of a bill that Senator Menendez put on the table 3 weeks before the election, and that was politically cynical. So I think it's a little bit unfair to be able to try to put all of the blame on the doorstep of the Republicans. President Obama, in 18 months in office, did absolutely nothing with regard to immigration reform, even though he promised in his first year that would be one of his top priorities. So I think, you know, let's put aside the rhetoric in terms of trying to lay all the blame on the doorstep of Republicans. I do think it's one of those issues that we are going to have to deal with as a nation, just because it is one of those big vexing issues that is just getting worse instead of getting better. So we do have to, as Americans, come up with a common sense solution to it, take into account the needs of our security, the needs of our economy, and the needs of our communities. But I think Susana Martinez and Brian Sandoval and Marco Rubio were out there trying to push forward an agenda with regard to immigration reform that was tough and fair. Pew Hispanic Research actually did a poll recently that showed that the majority of Hispanics in the United States don't favor amnesty. They favor a solution that requires a fine and pay back taxes and background check and that type of thing in terms of dealing with the 11 to 12 million that are currently here illegally. So I think it's, you know, we've got to think about, you know, when we say with us, what do you mean with us? I think that we have to be careful with language as well.
Well, both the Gutierrez bill and the Schumer bill, which used to be the Schumer-Graham bill, involve some punitive stuff, back taxes, fines, and all that. And Republicans insisted on calling them amnesty bills anyway, didn't they?
No, because at the end of the day, Senator Graham was willing to step up and be part of the negotiating team to be able to move forward a bill. What happened? The Democrats in Congress and the Senate, President Obama turned it into political football, and at that point is when the Republicans walked away from the table. I hope that now moving forward in the first part of next year, that they'll stop making it a political football. They'll actually sit down at the table and seriously want to negotiate with the Republicans.
And when we talk about political football, Lindsey Graham kicked it down the field a little bit more, and he came out in support of repealing the 14th Amendment. And he wanted to do that so he can deny citizenship to legally born citizens, children of undocumented parents in this country. That's the kind of rhetoric, and that's the kind of legislation that makes it not just an illegal immigrant atmosphere, but towards all immigrants. And we know that the underlying theme around a lot of this vitriol is a nativist theme that we see very clearly with candidates like Tom Tancredo, and we even see with some of the Latino candidates like Marco Rubio.